Welcome to the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. I'm thrilled you're here. My name is Jason Elkins, and in addition to being your host, I'm also a former U.S. Army paratrooper, third-generation commercial hot air balloon pilot, paramotor pilot, ex-Montana fly fishing guide, advanced open water scuba diver, and a full-time nomad that's visited more than 30 countries on 6 continents. As a seasoned adventure travel expert with a passion for creating and sharing meaningful experiences, I'm on a quest to impact the lives of adventure travelers, the tour operators they rely on, and the communities that host them. Every week, I bring you exclusive interviews with fascinating adventure tourism experts who have agreed to share their personal stories, favorite destinations, and some invaluable travel insights they've picked up along the way. We'll enjoy a casual conversation, create some connections, and likely share some laughs. It's my hope that by the end of each episode, this big world will feel just a bit smaller. Let's get started, shall we? Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. We have a true legend with us, a legend of African safaris and African stuff. And I'm just so happy to have her here. We've got Sara Kearns. She's the owner of Travels with Sara. And Sara, so happy to have you here. This is a real treat for me. Thank you.
Well, it's a treat for me too. So let's both enjoy.
We will, I guarantee. And I had mentioned to you at one point, maybe I've never actually shared this with the listeners, but when we first came on before I hit the record button, I was explaining to you why I don't do a whole lot of research before the interview. And I wasn't sure if I was being lazy or if it was just because I like the spontaneity of it. And I do like the spontaneity of it. And I always feel like these conversations, the way I envision them, is that you and I are just sitting at a table at some safari camp somewhere. We just met and you say, oh, I've got Travels with Sara. I do African safari stuff. The questions that I would ask you are going to be the same questions we're going to discuss today. Those questions I know you've heard 100 times or 1,000 times. Sara, how did you get into this? What were you doing before this? Those types of questions. It's not always about your favorite destinations, this and that. It's not about, well, do I need to get yellow fever shots if I go here or there or whatever? It's more about you. So that's what we're going to do today. If that's okay, how does that sound?
That's perfect. And I think that will be a very good introduction to what I do,
and who you are.
And who I am. And I must have retired 5 times. I mean, can't put an old dog down. And this last event started in 2009, having just retired from an amazing job.
Well, I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to go back a little further. Because usually I find that people who are doing this stuff had something influence them early on in their life. So I don't know how far back we need to go. Maybe what's your first memory, Sara? Let's go back. Okay. Yeah.
World War II.
Oh, wow.
1945, he would tell stories of Africa. He'd never been, but you would never have known it. He was like real. I mean, it was captivating. And I remember it then as being somewhere I wanted to go.
Where did he get these stories from?
Well, he was a traveler through reading. I mean, there wasn't any television then. He was a great historian, knew most things about most places, and he was like a walking encyclopedia.
And you grew up in England, is that right?
In England, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so he sparked my interest first. And then, I flew for BOAC. He, in fact, designed airplane undercarriages.
Oh, okay.
So I took him on his first adventure to Africa. I mean, his eyes almost fell out of his head. It was so fun. He was there for a month, and it was the good old days when it was lots of vehicles packed with tents and staff and food and silver. And it was like a big to-do.
Oh, wow.
And he did it for a month. And he had a friend of mine was the host, and they had 2 amazing specialists, or whatever you call them. One was a bird man, one was an animal man, 3, and one was a plant person.
Mm-hmm.
And my father was interested in anything that grew, flew, people not so interesting. But he was spoiled rotten. It wasn't commercial in those days. This was in 1967.
And you said you took him, right? So you were there with him the whole time.
I was flying on BOAC, and I put him, I asked him if he'd like to go. And we arranged it, and I arranged that he stay with a very good friend for a month, and then I went and picked him up at the end of the month.
Oh, okay. So you weren't necessarily with him the whole
No,
time.
I was working my little tail off as a trolley dolly.
So help me out here. What is BOAC?
British Airways now.
Okay. I was going to guess that.
British Overseas Airways Corporation, better known as Better on a Camel.
Nice. How long were you doing that?
I flew that till 68, so 64 to 68.
Had you traveled much before that?
Oh, help, yes. I was sent away to school when I was 10 to France by myself. Nobody with me. And no, I was an adventurer from the get-go. And I was at school in France. I was at school in Germany right after the war. I don't know how my mother had their whatever.
I think I'm picking up what you're... Yeah, I gotcha.
And then I wanted to fly, but you had to be 21. So I answered an ad in the Times of London, and it was looking for an au pair for a family in New Jersey. Oh. I rode away, and 18 years old, I was booked on a plane, but there was a terrible crash over Idlewild, I think they called it then. What is Kennedy Airport now? Transworld and Pan American collided.
Oh, okay.
Terrible big crash. Anyway, I suddenly had a bit of a panic, and so I bought a boat ticket instead. I saw it's when you can change your mind and whatever. So I went by sea.
Seems like a reasonable thing to do at the time.
5-day voyage turned out to be 9. The weather was atrocious. And everybody was sick. Everybody was missing at the dining. I was at every meal. I was outside braving the wind. I mean, my father built boats in his time, so I sort of like sailing.
Okay, so
you kind of slowly.
You're one of those people that enjoys the journey, not just the destination, it sounds like.
Absolutely, and I want people to get that back in there. They're always complaining. It's, the journey is so tiresome, or the journey is so... You meet some interesting people. You share your own story with others. I don't know why. It's always been... Nobody looks at each other. Everybody looks the other way.
Yeah. Anyway. I think that's why you and I connect so well, because I'm definitely a journey person. Mm-hmm. I like to have a destination, which gives me an excuse to make the journey. Right. Sometimes I'll just go on them. I spend a lot of time in Colombia. I'll just maybe pull out my phone, look at the map, and I'll find some little pueblo somewhere. And I don't even know what's in the pueblo, but I'm like, I'm just going to go find out. Which now requires me to go to the bus station, figure out how to get a ticket to there and get on the bus and have whatever experience I have on the bus. Maybe I have to change buses a couple times. Oh. And even if I get there and there's absolutely nothing to see, I don't care, because it wasn't about that. It's
either, I can't wait to go back because it was very interesting, or we've been there, done that. It was
and I saw some stuff along the way, or whatever. And I've had enough conversations similar to this now that I am starting to realize not everybody is that way. And actually, I spoke with someone the other day who's works, in this space. He's, was a travel blogger and writer and photographer, and anybody that's listened to his episodes is going to know who I'm talking about. And I just I made this assumption that he must have seen some really amazing things along the way. And somehow the conversation came up. It's like, is it about the journey or the destination? And he said, I don't care about the journey. I don't like the journey. I want to go there. I want to see what's there. And it's a pain in the butt to get there. And I was just
exactly how most people describe travel. It's how can you do it? It takes so long. Oh, it's boring. I went,
Well, it's interesting because this guy, he's been to, I don't know, 200 countries and all 50 states a couple times in the US. And he's been everywhere, it sounds like. And, but it's still, his focus is different. I don't understand it. It's not mine, but it's obviously he wants to go see things.
Business of travel and finds the actual traveling not much fun.
The getting there. He did say that given the choice, he'd rather take a train or something like that to be a little bit more flexibility, because you get on an airplane, it doesn't take as long, but you can't just just see something on the side of the road and stop and go check out the street food or whatever. You're kind of a little bit limited.
I think from all the things that I did, I wanted to fly, and I did, but I had to spend 2 years in America, 18, 19, and 20, nearly 3, before I could go home. At 21, I was able to fly. But I had a year and a bit here in New Jersey, and then I decided that why not go to California?
Sure, why not?
It's the same distance as going home almost, but I could go further.
How did you get from New Jersey to California? Based on our conversation we've been having,
and it landed in so many places. It left Newark. I think it went to Cincinnati. Then it went to Chicago. Then it went to Kansas. Then it went to Las Vegas, and then it got to Los Angeles. It was a long day.
Holy cow! Yeah, it's a little different now.
To stay, somebody had given me a phone number and just said, if you go to Los Angeles, give this person a call. And I don't even know if I've asked the name of the person. I was like, okay, I doubt this is going to work, but I'll put it in my purse. And anyway, it was Rory Calhoun. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He was a cowboy in the 60s.
Okay, like a television, I take it movie or television cowboy?
Rawhide or something. I don't know what it was.
Okay, all right.
Anyway, I ring the number, and he says, who's this? I said, this is Sara Kearns. Oh, no, it was Sarah Gingers, because I hadn't been married then. I was young. And he said, oh, a friend of mine told me you might call.
Mm-hmm.
So I went, oh? And he said, why don't you just jump in a cab and come over? Well, my luggage, got in the cab. When I gave the cab, the driver asked me the address. He said, are you sure this is right?
Mm.
And I went, yes, it's 901 Bedford Drive in Beverly Hills. And I guess he must have thought, did I know where I was going? And he gets to the...
He probably thought a few different things, Sarah, that we don't need to discuss.
I was so innocent. Anyway, gets out of the car and gets my luggage. I go push the doorbell, and we wait. And then this huge, tall, 6'6", black hair gentleman opened the door and said, oh, welcome, Sarah, you made it, blah, blah, blah. The cab driver was like, oh. I guess I brought you to the right place.
Very cool.
That was sort of parties every night. I mean, it was like landing in
I can
Disney World.
Only imagine. And as you were setting up that story and sharing that story, I thought we really need to discuss what your parents thought of you doing this, going to the U.S. at 18 on a ship.
They were the most wonderful parents. They never stopped me. They tried to encourage me to do whatever I had in mind to do, except for I had to finance it.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't going to finance it. No, they couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I found all kinds of ways to make the money to get that. And I'd been in a convent for, God knows, 12 years, and that was sort of tough. So I was really wanting to get out there and have a good time.
Go to Los Angeles. hang out with the movie stars.
I see.
What's that?
Oh, why not? It'll take a month to go home. I went from Los Angeles down to Acapulco to Panama, through the canal, Jamaica, Bermuda,
Holy cow.
and France, and then I finally got home.
So I heard you say your parents were wonderful. They were supportive of all this as long as you could finance it. Do you feel like it
was £10?
Well, look at you.
And I thought, oh, that's a lot of money. I'll be getting across the street now. But anyway, no, I came home after 2 years away, and I gave them back the £10.
There you go. Do you feel like they let you go because they're just supportive parents? I'm wondering.
They were very supportive. They wanted me to learn languages. I speak 4, and get as much experience as I could before deciding what to actually do.
Okay.
Because I certainly somebody wanted to go to university.
So it wasn't just okay, fine. If you want to go do it, you go do it. We'll sign off on it. It sounds like it was more like, yeah, this is great. You should do this. And you're going to learn all this stuff and experience all these things. And
no cell phones. You had to sort of dial up, or you have to have a reverse charge call, or wrote letters and put stamps on.
Wow. Okay. That's
I've been through a lot of adventure before I even started thinking it being my sort of destiny.
It kind of sounds like, based on what you've said just so far, I'm starting to kind of see why you're where you are and still doing those things. So I'm happy we went back that far and had that conversation. So I guess it
was what set me off, and it was early, very early in my life. But anyway, fast forward, I flew. I met a wonderful gentleman on one of my flights, I think it was out of Persia, out of Iran, out of Tehran. And he was flying back to London, and he was the best thing you ever saw. But I, didn't take any messages or anything. And he found me, and I flew to Bermuda. He was on holiday. I was on a flight working it, and we met up in Bermuda. And I said, "You are a very good detective."
So you were both living in London at the time?
I was both living in London.
But that's a big place. And we didn't have cell phones, and it wasn't that easy to track people down.
Close to where he was living, but I didn't realize that. He was moving. No sooner had I met him in Bermuda, he was moving to Rome.
Okay.
So I said, fine, let's meet in Rome. Next trip I do to Rome, I'll give you a call. And sure enough, I had a flight to Rome. I requested one. And
because you're pretty good at making things happen, I can tell.
Right. And I never took no for an answer. I always thought it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't try, you can't have it. So, and he said, well, would you like to come and see my apartment? And I said, well, why not? Guess where that was? Overlooking Trevi Fountain.
Okay.
The address, 100 Piazza Trevi. I went, oh.
That was the place in Rome, or are we speaking London? I'm lost. Okay.
No, he left London after he was in Bermuda. So I met him in Rome. Then I went to Israel several times. He was covering the 6-Day War, so 67.
Was he a journalist?
He was a journalist. He was, listen to this, he was chief African correspondent for CBS News.
Okay, I'm connecting all the dots here.
I feel like, how did I pick that one?
I suspect you've manifested that. I don't know if you believe in manifestation, but it sounds like you manifested that one.
I manifested it. My father got me going, and Frank certainly encouraged it. And so there we go. Did your dad have opportunities to get to know him? Is that yes, just not very long.
Because I can imagine if he was the reader that he was, he probably they would have. Just seems like they would have really.
Him. I had to really worry about her.
Oh.
He was older than I was. She was. Oh, very nice young man.
Yeah.
But anyway, it worked out. He finally quit CBS, and he went back to his alma mater in West Virginia, University of West Virginia, Morgantown, where we spent 13 years. Talk about crazy. You just left Rome, wine, beautiful food, fabulous people, and then you get to West Virginia. It's dry for a start, really boring, and no coffee. It's all Folgers or Maxwell House. And I just said, wine? Where do we buy wine? So we'd be in the car every weekend going to either Pittsburgh or Washington, D.C. to load up. Mm-hmm. Anyway, after 13 years, I ran a business there, interior design. He taught journalism. And I played tennis, won everything in sight. And then I think, he said, I'm fed up with teaching. They're all boring students. There's only one every blue moon that's any good. Let's retire and go to Italy. So I'd retired from BOAC. I had retired from Morgantown and the teaching and my business. Got to Italy. He got sick, very sick. And 3 years in, I lost him. I came back and I opened up a bed and breakfast in New York City, the first one to be registered legally, long before Airbnb. And did that for 8 years. Then I was headhunted by an amazing gentleman who had his own private Gulfstream. And he was looking for a private chef, no strings, no family, 24/7 you're on call. Mm-hmm. And I did that for 11 years.
Was that out of New York as well, or?
That was out of New York. He lived in Brooklyn. The plane was in Newark, and we went all over the world. It was fantastic.
So were you only working for him when you were traveling, or was this?
Yes, only when he was on the plane. I was his chef on the plane.
That's okay.
Not bad. I mean, sometimes it was just him and the crew, so that was easy. Sometimes he'd have 13 guests and the crew, a lot of food, and some flights were 13 hours long.
And would you typically stay over? I don't know if you lay over when it's a private plane like that.
But for 3 weeks. The trips changed every time. It was his own plane. He didn't charter it or rent it or he did a lot of business on it. A lot.
Do you? I'm just curious. Have you kept track of all the places you went? Like the number, not that this is about
There's only
counting
4 countries
countries.
I've not been to.
There's only 4, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. All right. When are we going? Let's go.
North Korea is one.
Okay. I can understand why that might not be on your list.
Albania was one, but I could go now. But it was so close to Italy, but it was completely shut shop. And Antarctica. Now it's a bit cold. I really want to see the penguins. And the other's Mongolia. And I'd like to go. So that's not one that I've written off.
Right. So you're still open to the idea that you might visit a few of those places.
Yes, I can make the list shorter.
If you go to Antarctica, I interviewed somebody who we were discussing that, and he was talking about I don't remember if they just called it the cold plunge, whatever, where they, it's tradition to jump off the boat into the water for a few seconds.
Oh, no, I mean, it's cold, and I'm getting to not like the cold at all. I think maybe I missed my boat there, as they say. You can fly there. There's planes that land at Murdo Sound. But anyway, I have been to many, many places. And my heart, to begin with, I fell in love, hard to say. Italy I've always loved. Australia is fascinating. I have a lot of Australian paintings. This one? I have 19 pieces that I bought.
Okay.
And I love Australia. I love Argentina. I could live Hong Kong. Used to be a lot of fun. I'm not sure it's the same.
Yeah.
Tahiti, not the big island, but the littler ones. Gorgeous, beautiful water.
Mm-hmm. And where are you living? I think you mentioned New Jersey, right?
I live in New York State, very close to the Jersey line.
Okay. All right.
And I'm an hour from the city, which means most of my clients are there, so I have to go into the city.
I'm curious because you've been so many places. What is it about New York that really draws you to actually still live there?
I met someone while I got this job flying, and I wanted to live out of the city because I saw cities all the time. And I'm on a horse farm with 18 horses. And I got an apartment that is like two stalls put together. And now I've got it upstairs, so I've got a bit more room. But it's beautiful. You can walk out the door, you're on the ground. You're not up and down stairs or elevators or doormen.
Yeah, I haven't had a lot of experience living in cities. And I've always thought I really like New York City a lot. And we lived in Vermont for quite a while. And we'd come down to
pretty, very pretty.
Very pretty, very rural, beautiful. I probably won't live there again. I'm pretty sure I won't ever live there again.
The reason I can live here is because I usually go to Africa 4 or 5 times a year. Mm-hmm. So I don't sort of get stuck.
Well, that was when we went to Vermont, it was actually for me to take a travel job, to run a travel business where I had the opportunity to go pretty much anywhere I wanted, when I wanted, for business, for work, to do that thing. And so I kind of looked at it like, yeah, I can live in Vermont if I can go,
I always have to have 1 or 2 tickets in my inbox.
To Argentina or to Africa or to New Zealand. It was like, I don't care I'm not going to say Vermont is boring because I have some friends that still live there that might be listening to this. But yeah, so I get it. So it's nice. It's kind of nice to have the option to go to the city or those things, but not, I think I always thought, I'd love to live in Manhattan. And then I realized, probably for a year or 2, maybe.
Yes, it was plenty.
Yeah.
Very much. It's very busy, very hard work. Everything's a struggle.
Yeah.
Even parking the car.
People, what's that?
Parking the car. Very hard.
Parking the car.
You pay as much to park the car as you do to live in the apartment. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yep. I get that.
You feel like you're in the bush. You're far away from big roads and red lights and signs. I guess it's become part of my, I really love it. And when I take people, they get it, but they don't get it before they go.
Yeah. It's one of those places that tell me about Africa. How do I do that?
They don't believe me.
Yes.
That it's going to be that nice. They just think she's talking a lot.
Well,
and it's like, oh, you're right. Oh my goodness. Oh, the people are nice.
That was my first thought when I went there. I've only been a couple times. And the first time I was there, that was the first thing that blew me away, was just how super friendly. And that was
willing to do whatever. Then never, oh, that's not my job. type of line, which I get here all the time. Really
No.
like, you ask someone to, no, that's not my job.
Yeah, it's not. It's the union. It's in the union contract. I can't do that. Have you ever actually lived in Africa? I mean, I know you've spent a tremendous amount of time. It's almost like you've lived there.
Any longer. I think maybe the longest time was 3 months.
Okay. Do you think you could live there?
In Nairobi.
Do you think you could live in Africa? And if so, where?
It's strange you should ask that, because I was contemplating this last year, thinking I really missed it. Maybe I should go stay there for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that I'm so settled here.
Yeah.
And
if you were, I'm just curious what were you considering?
I don't live there.
What's that? I
think I love it because I don't live there. I'm involved with what goes on behind the scenes or what goes on under the I don't really want to know that.
Yeah, I don't want to know that about the U.S. To be honest with you,
everyone complains that it's too expensive. It's too this. It's too that. I said yes, but I'm selling, and the holidays are very expensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there a particular place or in Africa that you were considering, or that like anybody that's listening to this that's I want to live there? Yep.
This is my latest East Africa one, and it's got 81 pages.
Read the title of that of that for our listeners, because they can't see it. I can see it, kind of.
Safaris, Ultimate Sourcebook, East Africa edition. So this covers Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Uganda.
Okay.
So a lot of chimpanzees and gorillas are in that area, plus the big five, plus all the migration.
Mm-hmm.
Zanzibar, Tanzania, the coast. And the next book is very similar looking, but it's the Southern Africa edition. That has 11 countries. So
you brought up the book right when I asked you where in Africa you might consider living. So
I think it would be Nairobi.
Nairobi, okay.
I'd have to really think about why would I live there? Would I be doing what I do now?
On the other side of it, maybe, huh? A little bit.
I get the best of both worlds because I get to choose a lot of the places to go to because nobody has a clue.
Yeah. Okay.
So if they want me to go along, I think, well, no, where have I not been recently, or where's the best place, or what's going to suit them. I like that smorgasbord of choice. I don't want to be stuck with, I've come to live here. No.
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm curious because one of the things that's unique about Africa is just the sheer volume of options. It's a huge place.
It's huge. And that's what most people, I ask them for a wish list. That's my first opening question. What do you think you want to see? And out comes this long, long list. Cairo, Egypt, pyramids, Nairobi, migration, Mount Kenya, Kilimanjaro, the beach, Zanzibar. How about gorillas in Rwanda? How about Botswana, Zambia, Zimbabwe? And then it's, Namibia sounds good. South Africa. Oh, yes, I'd like to do Cape Town. I said, how big is your pocket and how much time
do you have?
And usually the people with the time don't have the money. The people with the money don't have the time.
Yeah.
So, unless you're just dealing with old folks and they've all got both, it's hard to slow people down and say, look, if you want a really good adventure, you need to go to one place, maybe two, and not race around and changing underwear, changing bed clothes, changing airports. You're dizzy.
Yeah, it can get exhausting. I've been traveling full time for the last few years, and you
have to pace yourself.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You need to. I always say, if you like it on the first visit, maybe you can consider a second. But usually the first thing out of their mouth is, this is a trip of a lifetime. I'll never go again. I want to see it all. Well,
but how does that usually work out?
So I have to sort of unknit the sweater.
Yeah.
And tell them, I honestly think you shouldn't do all. You can't do all. So you have to choose out of the 10 things you wanted to do. How about 5? And then out of the 5, we'll maybe do 3.
2 or 3, yeah.
Sometimes you can do a lot of things in a lot of places. But if you want to see Vic Falls, you have to go to Zimbabwe.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, like, what I heard you say is a lot of people are like, this is a trip of a lifetime. We're only going to go once. We're not going to go back. We got to do it all while we're there. and then you talk some sense into them or help them see the errors of their ways. But I also suspect that an awful lot of those people that told you, I'm never going back this trip of lifetime, I suspect you've got a pretty good repeat and return clientele, don't you?
Exactly. Because when they get there, it's not what they expected. Mm-hmm. It's way better.
Yeah.
People, and the trouble is trying to get them to go, they'll agree, let's do it again, but they want to go back to the same place because they like the people. So that's defeating the object, that there's many more nice people in different places.
Yeah. So I would think doing, a continent as big as Africa as a tour operator and offering so many different options is great because you've got a lot of different options. It's challenging because you've got a lot of different options.
Winnowing them out. Well, some win themselves out because the cost of going is never cheap.
Right.
But the top end has got very top end. Mm-hmm. It used to be 1,000 a day was good. 1,500 was like way good. It's now 3,000 and 4,000 a day per person.
Wow.
So that would, take some choices off the list.
And usually when the prices go up like that, it's because there's just a lot of demand or the supply goes down. I'm assuming the supply hasn't gone down much.
The supply hasn't gone down. In fact, it's coming up. I think people have finally got over COVID,
mm-hmm.
The ones who were scared to travel. And there's a lot of money out there.
Yeah.
There really is. You remember the days? Well, you're too young. You used to be able to go to Europe on like $10 a day.
I do. Yeah, I don't remember that. I'm sorry. I would like to.
Well, that's, in the 50s and 60s, that was, and you could do it all on $10 a day.
Yeah. I remember there were travel books out.
Yeah.
There were Europe for, $10 a day or whatever it was. Yeah. So, yeah. And
but
I'd like to find a place I can do that.
There are still some bargains, but the bargains aren't really bargains because the park fees are the same whether you're in $1,000 a day or a $20 a day. So you still have to pay $200 a day just to go in the park.
Right. I'm curious for someone that wants to go spend some time in Africa that's not maybe they've one of those people that have the time but no money, and was just going to go kind of travel around. So I'm a digital nomad. Where should I go as somebody that really doesn't have any money? I'm not expecting to stay at the game camps. I know that those are expensive, but if there were one country that would just be an interesting place to go hang out and could get inexpensive accommodations and just have a nice time.
Zimbabwe has definitely got.
Okay.
Zambia a little bit. I'm sure if you wandered around Kenya out of the main parks, there's plenty to do.
Okay.
Places to stay that are reasonable. But there are ways. You can take the bus. Most of these countries have buses that go to all these little villages where all the guides, very few of them live very close to the camp. So when they go home for the days off, they work 6 weeks on, 7 days a week, and then they have 4 or 5 days off. And they get on a bus and they'll spend all day going back to their village. We're all very spoiled. And people say, I only travel business. I said, oh, really?
I love taking buses. I mean, here in Colombia, I have no desire to have a car. Sometimes I think I might like to get a motorcycle.
Well, you could rent one.
Yeah, you could.
If you need it.
But I like the buses. I mean, I really like the buses. It's just like Are
you there alone?
I don't know.
Or do you have family with you?
No, I'm just kind of doing my solo thing and moving around. So I'll, if I've got a friend, we're going somewhere. I like to get on the bus because I don't know. It's just now when I meet Colombians.
And you have great trains. Well, Peru has lovely trains. I don't know about Colombia.
Well, we've got for example, like a metro system here in Medellin.
Oh, right.
That's,
what?
The nicest metro system I've ever been on. I mean, it is spotless. You cannot even open a bottle of water while you're on the train. Because everybody will look at you like, hey, you're breaking the rules. Which means it's completely spotless. It's well taken care of. But I talk about how much I love the metro. I like the buses. I like the taxis. I like all that stuff.
Because you've got people on them.
You can tell that about me, can't you? And what's interesting, though, is when I meet Colombians, especially, I'm a single guy. I date sometimes and I meet people. And I've learned that for me to suggest that we go get on a bus and go to one of the pueblos in the hills and eat empanadas, to me, that's a fascinating date. And I've learned that it's kind of the equivalent of if I'm in the US, I I take a girl to McDonald's or something, she's then not going to be impressed. She's like, I ride the bus 6 days a week, 45 minutes to work, 45 minutes to get home every day. And it's crowded and I don't like the buses. And the last thing I want to do is go get on a bus on date night. So
I think it all comes back to work has become something nobody really likes doing anymore.
Yeah.
It's a chore.
Yeah. And they associate certain things with their chores, which makes sense. I get that.
And I have been fortunate, touch wood, to have always enjoyed what I've done.
Mm-hmm. And I can tell
is, the secret to a long, happy life and long may it last, because I'm not ready to give up.
Yeah, I can tell. I do want to touch on one thing that I had thought about earlier is, these preconceived ideas. I'm speaking to you from Colombia. We're talking about Africa. We're speaking about Africa.
Well, that's
and I think you and I
world these days.
What's that?
Beauty of the world. You can be in places.
It is very cool.
At the same time.
And I also recognize that when I told people I was going to start traveling and I was going to start off going to Colombia by myself as a middle-aged guy, all kinds of stereotypes and all kinds of stuff came up with my family and friends. And I know that when you speak about, to potential clients, maybe if you're already speaking to them, maybe they've already kind of accepted the idea that they want to go to Africa. But I'm sure that when you speak to other people and tell them what you do, you get a lot of stereotypes, a lot of questions about safety.
They're terrified.
Viruses, health stuff, whatever. So I wanted to just take a moment for you to kind of address some of those common concerns that people have expressed to you.
Phobias, yeah. Going to Africa is easier than going most places, but, they're slowly deciding that maybe yellow fever is something one should have to cross borders. Now, if you just go to one country, it's not so necessary. But if you're going to be traveling through Africa, they do seem to think that yellow fever is necessary, but none of the others. So it's really simple.
And a yellow fever shot is pretty easy to get, right?
Bites and insects, they're terrified. They're more in my garden in the summer than I see in Africa.
Well, and also you look at the size of the continent. If anything, it's kind of the same thing here or in the U.S. or in the whole world really is. One thing happens that gets a lot of attention.
And it blows up.
And if you've never been to Africa and the headline is
Africa's had
mall shooting in Africa.
They think it's everywhere.
They think, man, I'm not going to Africa. There's mall shootings in Africa. But let's seriously think. Yeah, let's think about what happens in the U.S.
Which school do your child go to?
Right. Yeah, and
I'm not lousy record of shooting people.
Yeah, and terrible. I mean, obviously, there's places and times in Africa and everywhere in the world where it's like, okay, maybe this is not the right place to be right now for you. But if you've never
be there and not know anything's happening, and it's maybe 100 miles away where something's happening, but people say it's Africa. The whole of Africa suddenly gets a tar brush.
Yeah, which, anybody, just look at the map. Look how big it is.
Where it is, what countries they've flown over, no clue.
Yeah.
But once they get there, meet the people, they're overwhelmed with how nice, how polite, how this, how that. I'm going, well, I've been trying to tell you for a while. You really haven't listened because you have a preconceived idea that they're all criminals and crooks. What does Trump call everybody,
Mm-hmm. Oh. All right. Well, tell us how you really feel.
Well, I'm getting very excited because I'm going back. I haven't been back since last February because I was doing these books.
So we're in November 2024 right now. But the thing with podcasts is somebody could be listening to this a couple years from now.
Right.
But I'm curious on this next trip, where are you going? What's
this one I'm coming up. I'm going to Nairobi. I'm going to Sale. I'm going to the Meru Park. Coming back to Nairobi and going to the Mara. Looking at new properties. There's always something new. And whether they want to be in the book or not, I'll ask them.
Oh, okay.
And then February, I'm taking my grand nieces, 4 and 6, and they are so excited. They're going with their mother and father, my niece and husband, and it's Auntie Sarah. Will I see an elephant? I want to see an elephant. 4 and 6, but the excitement level is amazing. I love it.
That is very cool, especially considering the conversation we were just having. People that have concerns about traveling, and usually when safety concerns come up, it's all, what about kids and this and that? So
they love it. And the best deal there is a lot of the camps, the children are free until they're sometimes up to 15, but definitely 11 or 12.
I'm not going to make any jokes about bringing your kids for free and feeding the wildlife or anything like that. I'm not going to even touch on that.
I think the lion's going to jump in the truck. I said, the lion has no interest in you whatsoever. Zero. Whatever you've seen on TV is somebody's fault.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, obviously these are wild animals. You got to treat them with respect.
You treat them with respect.
But we see that in the Western United States, and these people that have never left the U.S., these are animals that are native to the U.S., and people do the stupidest thing. That's exactly what I was thinking about.
Bison. Hello.
I grew up in Wyoming, and I lived just north of Yellowstone. I was a fly fishing guide, and I used to take people into Yellowstone Park for fishing. But the point is, every summer, somebody does something, puts a baby buffalo in their car, or because they think it's abandoned, and, or tries to put their kid on the back of a moose so they can take a photo. And
they just don't.
Yeah. And it's not for lack of education. And like, you go into the park,
there's
signs everywhere.
Do not get out of your car. Do not pet the animals.
Then they give you a flyer that says the exact same thing. I should not share this story, but I guess I can. My brother is, grew up in the same area I did, and his wife was from back east, and her parents came to visit when they were living in Montana. Her parents came to visit, and they thought, we'll take them to Yellowstone Park. And I really hope nobody's listening to this that knows. Anyway, they go in the park, and there's all the signs, and then they've got the radio on a loop, the park information radio, because there's no other radio stations there. So you listen to that, and then they've got the brochures, everything. Don't do this. Stay on the trail. Don't touch the water. The hot springs are toxic. They're acidic. All the stuff. They're driving in the park. His mother-in-law is in the backseat reading all this stuff out loud to the group. And then they go to the geyser area, and they're out walking on the trail. And Justin, I guess they're behind him, and he hears her say, "Oh, wow, the water is hot." And he turns around, and she's laying on the boardwalk with her hand in one of the hot springs. And he said, I just looked at her, I turned around and just kept walking. Like I don't know who this person is. She's not with me. So anyway.
Human behavior can be somewhat strange.
Yeah. But, we're all animals, and we all have our weird little things that we do.
I like to think we're the biggest and the best. They don't seem to realize that elephants weigh 2 tons.
Oh, boy. So
anyway, it is always fun to see it through other people's eyes. It is.
It is.
The attraction, I think, for me.
I agree with you completely. For me, travel and this stuff is about the shared experiences.
Right.
Whether it's with somebody that I already have a family member, or another person on a group trip, or a guide, or just really anybody. It's just, I want that connection. I crave that connection. And sometimes along with that, people do things that you think is weird. You're like, okay, they're having their experience. Some people can read that the hot spring, that don't touch hot springs, it's hot and acidic. Other people need to actually feel it to really believe it. And that's fine.
I want to believe what the truth is sometimes, I think.
I'm sure you've had some client stories, and I'm not asking you for names, and if I don't want you to reveal anything.
I had one crazy lady. The guide had been telling them all along, don't get out of the car until I tell you. And he pulls up, and he's looking for a sundowner spot where the sun's going down. And
tell us about the sundowner tradition as well.
The guide will choose a spot where the sun is going down, and it's usually there's a body of water, because that's where animals come to drink. And he sets up a bar, and everybody has their gin and tonics and the ice and the lemon and the whole thing. It's all very beautiful. But we had literally pulled up to a spot that he thought would be suitable, and the woman jumped out of the car, same as a lion in the bushes. And I thought, get back in the car, you stupid twit.
Wait, she jumped out and said there's a lion in the bushes?
Yes. He hadn't seen it. He was busy looking for a spot, and it was pretty well hidden, I have to say. He was lying down asleep, so it wasn't sort of up there. And, it woke him up, I tell you, when she, the car door, they hear everything. Well, you have to keep your eyes and ears open as to idiots that might do something silly. But we were all right. We got in the car. We moved a spot to where, there was no lion lying around, and we all got out. But you have to be aware.
I used to joke that, when I was guiding more, I would joke that the number one rule in the guide handbook or in the guide rule book,
right,
is the number one rule is you got to come back with the same number of people you left with.
Well, that is sort of number one rule.
And it's kind of a joke, but when you see some of the things that people do.
That's missing. Hello, where's that
one? So anyway, crazy.
No.
I think you and I could share stories all day long. I wish we had a lot more time. I think you need to come back and visit with me again, and we can cover some more stuff.
We'll have another one.
Let's do it in Africa.
Fast forwarded many of them.
Yeah, let's do it in Africa. So what I'd like to do, though, is I want to make sure, are there any questions I should have asked, forgot to ask, or anything that you want to make sure our listeners hear before we wrap it up?
No, I think we've covered quite a lot of ground. It's an amazing holiday, vacation, and as long as they know how to get hold of me, it's pretty simple.
We're going to have your link right to your website. It's going to be in the show notes.
Right.
And then if they go there, they can figure out how to buy your books, right?
Right. There's the books for sale online. And you can email me at travelswithsara@gmail.com. Very easy.
All right. So when people, if somebody does want to book a safari with you, it sounds like go to the website. Obviously your contact information is on there.
That right.
I noticed that you don't, different companies do things differently. Some companies have, these are our trips and choose which one you want. But I want to give you an opportunity to share with potential clients how you work.
No, it's basically I custom make my trips because most of them I go on. So obviously I want something that I know will work. I don't want page 22. Oh, yes, try that one.
Yeah, okay. So it's really customized.
You can go by yourself if you're feeling brave enough. It's always very safe, and I have people on the ground who take very good care of you, so you're not abandoned. You get off the plane, you're met.
So when you say you should go on them, it sounds like you're leading a group.
Yes, and I'll take 1, 2, or 3 people. I don't take 10. Very private.
All right.
It's customized. It's special. It gives you the best possible experience rather than having 15 people you don't know all wanting to sit in the same seat. Or
are these groups only private groups, or if one person wanted to go to Africa,
people, a couple, it can be family. I've done quite a few grandparents, parents, and children. So that's a sort of 5, 6, 7 people.
But will you do a mixed group? I mean, if somebody wanted that type of thing,
probably could if they knew each other.
Okay, all right. So in that sense, it's not really because they're probably just booking it together.
Yeah, I think it's not a group travel type of trip.
Okay.
Because it's very personal. The guide that you have is an expert, and it's hard for him to tell the same story to 15 different people.
Yeah. That's.
And if
you've got a large group and you've got more than 1 or 2 vehicles, and it becomes
it's chaos.
People are having different experices. And,
there you go.
Yeah.
Or not the ones they want. Oh, we wanted to see what you saw. Well, sorry.
Yeah. It's actually much easier. It's much easier for the guides and the clients to have a better experience sometimes when you've got that small group that's not necessarily going to be comparing notes and sharing notes.
Well, most vehicles will take 6 people, 2, 4, 6 in the back, and I'll sit in the front with the guide. So a total of 7 in the group is a full group for me.
Okay. Yeah. And that's a nice experience.
But I do a lot of them with 2 and 3 people myself.
Okay. Very cool. Well, at this point, anybody that's listening is I'm convinced feels a connection with you, and if they want to go to
and get right online.
Yep, they're going to be calling you as soon as they're done listening to this. And if you are listening to this and you're going to reach out to Sara, please mention that you heard her episode on the Big World Made Small podcast. There's we don't have any sort of commission agreement or anything like that. That's not. I don't get paid a dime.
Very small.
What's that?
Well, I say you can make the world very small.
Yeah.
Exposing the best places to go.
Yep, that's the mission. Create more connections, make the world feel a bit smaller. So, Sara, thank you so much for coming on the show and helping me with that mission.
Yes,
and I think we've accomplished it today. So, thank you so much, and I'll look forward to chatting with you again soon.
I look forward to another episode.
We're going to do a whole series of interviews about Africa. We've already,
there you go.
The audience doesn't know. We've already discussed that. So we'll see.
As soon as I get back from this one, I'll give you a buzz.
All right.
In February. I've got March. I'm going to Southern Africa. And
busy.
Falls, yes. And I've got people now wanting to go, goodness knows where. I have to work it out before I go away. But
all right.
It keeps me
safe travels.
Thank you.
We'll chat with you when you get back. I'm sitting here listening. It's like a thunderstorm going on outside. I'm pretty sure we're going to lose our connection any moment. So I better say goodbye now before we have to come back and record
crazy weather.
14 seconds of goodbyes. Thank you, Sara. Appreciate you. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I trust you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you're enjoying the Big World Made Small podcast, please take a moment to tell the algorithm by subscribing and posting a review so that others can benefit as well. I also invite you to take a quick trip over to bigworldmadesmall.com and join our private adventure travel community to receive new episode notifications, special access to our guest experts, and perhaps even some exclusive partner offers that we haven't discussed on the podcast. I'll publish another episode soon. Until then, keep exploring. It's the best way to make a big world feel just a bit smaller.